Promotional consideration paid for by the following.
This is awesome! This is awesome!
Hello and welcome once again to Cheap Shot Entertainment. Now, it's difficult for me to be the usual hello and welcome to Cheap Shot Entertainment kind of host that I usually am, because this review is for Hell in a Cell 2019. Yeah, taking a hit for this one. Hell in a Cell 2019 was at the Golden One Center in Sacramento, California, the home of the Sacramento Kings, and it took place on the 6th of October. And yeah, this one's going to be a really difficult one to do, because the ending, and I'm sure if you've watched it you will agree with me, the ending, but I'm not going to spoil that because we do no spoilers here, and you've probably already seen it anyway. This is just one man's opinion on Cheap Shot Entertainment, and if you like the video and want to share us out there and tell people what we do, other people are doing it, but I think we have a unique way of doing things here, especially with the independent wrestling stuff. And yeah, join us on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram, and of course the blogger, where you can go and click the t-shirt shop and get your t-shirts, show your colours, choose your colours, and support the channel. With that out of the way, I just want to say we're recording this on the 8th of October, so a couple of days after. It's had a couple of days to sink in, but notably on the 8th of October it's someone's birthday, and I just want to say happy birthday to my main man Martin, my nephew. I would say little nephew, but he's 14 now. 14! How 14? But I hope you will wish him happy birthday as well as the Cheap Shot Nation. You've seen him plenty of times on here, and he's always fun to have around, and I hope you have a fantastic birthday, even if this video goes up after your birthday and you see it then. But obviously I haven't had a chance to see you on your birthday, so happy birthday from Cheap Shot Entertainment and your Uncle Luke. And without further ado, let's get into Hell in a Cell and go through everything that happened. So we're going to kick off the show with the pre-show. Went back and watched this. It was actually a pretty decent match. Obviously it's not going to be very long, but it was Natalya and Lacey Evans, a match that we've seen numerous times already. I honestly thought that the feud was over. Lacey Evans was 2-0 against Natalya. I never really understand what they're doing with Natalya. 1 minute she's heel, 1 minute she's face, then she's champion, then she's not champion, and she's all the way back down the bottom. And it's like doing the Macarena, just wanting to know where Natalya is going to be. On this night though, she did pick up the victory over Lacey Evans, and she did it with the traditional sharpshooter and submission finish. I'm not going to go into too many details about this one. It is a pre-show after all. We don't usually do those, but I thought it deserved a special mention because that is going to be the theme of Hell in a Cell, of the things that they did do right in this one. So, or I think they did right anyway. But Natalya gets the victory, and she gets it by submission. It's 2-1 now for Lacey Evans and Natalya in their feud. Go on to another women's match now. The revolution of women's wrestling came and went, died, fizzled out, and they brought in the women's tag team championships, and then it fizzled out again. But at the moment we've got the Four Horsewomen, and they're all battling for the two main championships in the women's division, which I approve of. They are the best on the roster. There are some undercard women that could quite easily come up and take those titles off the four horsewomen, but at the moment it's going to be bounding around between all four of them, I think. And this match was absolutely crazy in terms of spots. This was this was better than the match that Sasha Banks and Charlotte had, most definitely, in the Hell in a Cell. That match was historic and really, really good. But the spots in this match were just insane. Double knees to the ladder from Sasha to Becky Lynch. There was a exploder into the cage. There was a double knees through the table. There was all sorts of things that these ladies did. They put their bodies on the line for our entertainment, and it was good. It was a good match and such a good way to start the show. And I thought, yeah, okay, this one might actually be good, even though they've only announced 4 matches. And in terms of pay-per-views, I like to know what I'm going to watch. So having the matches just turn up, just happen, doesn't do it for me. Not at this level. At independent level, yeah, okay, fair enough, you can do it. But even independent companies do a better job than WWE did on this night. It's like, hold on a minute, we've got a pay-per-view on Sunday, we better put some matches out. Anyway, back onto the match, because this match was actually really, really good. Because the before the cage lowered, this is the new thing they do now. They don't lower the cage and then let them in through the door. They get both combatants in the ring and then lower the cage. I suppose it makes it more foreboding. It's like, oh, you're going to get locked in the cage. But in this case, Sasha attacks Becky and it spills beyond the cage. So they use the cage to the fullest. They use the surrounding areas to the fullest. And Sasha Banks gets the upper hand on the champion. Wasn't long before Becky would come back and throws a chair in Sasha Banks' face and takes control. Double knees again, like I say, to the ladder, which looked absolutely sickening, and that was a ladder propped up in the corner of the cage as well. And Sasha comes back then. But the spot of this match, and it was really innovative. Basically, they got some kendo sticks, because you need kendo sticks to set up the ring, obviously, and puts them in the cage, wedges them across the corner of the cage, puts a big chair, or a steel chair rather, on top of those, puts Sasha Banks on top, almost like using a top turnbuckle, and then drop kicks her into the cage. It looks absolutely awesome. Probably a bit more set up than the move actually needed, but really, really good spot. The match would finish with Becky hitting a super Bexploder into a pile of chairs that Sasha had set up in the middle of the ring. Don't know what she was going for there, but she was definitely, I think, probably trying to get a frog splash on Becky Lynch. Becky countered it, super Bexploder onto the chairs. That led to a disarmer. Sasha Banks taps out, and your champion is still Becky Lynch. The man moves on and keeps that championship belt. Now, the next match is a tornado tag match. Now, we don't have a lot of those in wrestling, in WWE in general, but this one was Roman Reigns and Daniel Bryan versus Harper and Rowan. Not the Bludgeon Brothers, but Harper and Rowan. And what this match was 2 big guys versus 1 big guy and a little guy. But the big guys looked strong in doing so, because they beat up the other two, and it really played into their strengths, having this as a tornado tag match. Didn't take any notes for this really, because it was all over the place, but I found it very entertaining, and this is what really frustrated me about this show, because the first two matches were actually pretty damn good, and the finish to this one was even better. Got a Superman punch into a running knee from Daniel Bryan, and then a spear, and it was seamless, and it just took out Luke Harper. He took the pin, and Roman Reigns and Daniel Bryan hug it out. Yay! They hug it out. Always good for a hug anytime. But yeah, decent match. Not the best, but I feel like the tornado tag rules, which I didn't know about, I knew about the match happening, didn't know it was tornado tag until the show started. I really enjoyed it. You know, the monster heels could be monster heels without having to get the tags. There was a big spot as well where I think it was Harper got speared on the table. Roman Reigns came out of nowhere, ran across two tables and speared Harper through the table. Really good match, good spots, and like I say, the show started off really well, and we continue with that upward trend with Randy Orton versus Ali. Now, again, one of those matches that they didn't announce because they realised too late that there was a show on the Sunday, and yeah, they go, oh well, it's like they just got like some top trumps cards, and you go, oh yeah, like he can go against him, and you know, it's calm down, breathe. So yeah, Randy Orton would pick up the victory in this one. It was pretty much cut and shut from the get-go. Randy Orton, obviously being the veteran, the Viper, he doesn't care what Ali can bring to the table, doesn't, you know, but Ali did a really good job, including countering an RKO in a really innovative way, but he would succumb to that RKO eventually. Randy Orton picking up the victory. Decent little match. Didn't know it was going to happen, so it was hard for me to get excited about it and during it, for those reasons, but still continuing the upward trend for a show that hadn't really had any matches announced before it started. So we move on to another women's match now, and it's the Women's Tag Team Championships, a match that again wasn't mentioned. It just wasn't mentioned at all, and Bliss and Cross come out, they're the champions, and they're going against the Kabuki Warriors. Remember the Kabuki Warriors? They are Asuka and Kairi Sane. Apparently they're heel now, which, so be it. You know, you got but the thing that confused me, and I said this to Josh when we was watching it, unfortunately Woody was completely knocked out at this point, because we went over to his house and he was still asleep, so we had to come back and watch it here. But that's fine, that's cool, because he's got plenty of stuff in for the next time a pay-per-view rolls round, if we can bring ourselves to watch it. Anyway, so yeah, thing I don't get about this is that you've got two natural heels in Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross. They are face. And then you've got two natural faces. They're wearing all the bright colours and all that kind of stuff, reminiscent of an Ultimate Warrior or whatever. And they're heel. Like, they've done it with Io Shirai on NXT, but she used to come out in really pastel colours and stuff like that. She's just gone black now. Everything's black. That to me says heel instantly. Instantly it says heel. And she's doing it really well. Now, that's not to say that Asuka and Kairi Sane can't pull off heels. because I'm sure they can pull off a heel character. Asuka, we've seen that in her. We've seen that happen with her, and she's flip-flopping like Natalya at the moment. But Kairi Sane is the one that interests me. Now, Scallywag, is she going to become a full-on evil pirate? I don't know, but it interests me. Anyway, the match itself was actually pretty damn good. To say that we didn't know that it was going to happen, they've already had a match. I think it was on Raw a couple of weeks prior, and it's good to see that the Women's Tag Team Championships are on the main card, and they haven't been completely forgotten apart from Night of Champions. So that brings me to the point I was making earlier. The women actually got a lot of TV time on this show, and it's one thing that they did right. Apart from, I mean, the women had the best Hell in a Cell match, and we'll get to that later. But the women actually got a lot of TV time, and it's at this point where I say that the Kabuki Warriors won the Women's Tag Team Championships. Now, going full heel here, Alexa Bliss and Asuka are no strangers to each other. They were beating the tar out of each other at one point, but Asuka seems to have adopted the green mist that a lot of Japanese wrestlers use to blind their opponents. Great Kabuki, the Tajiri and people like that. They all came in with this mist, this green mist. Apparently Asuka does that now. So yeah, cool. Asuka hits the green mist on Nikki Cross, who was just about to pick up the victory for her team, and kicks her to the side of the head, only Asuka can, and pins Nikki Cross to win the championships for the Kabuki Warriors. Where is Paige? I don't know, because that was her sort of TV time deal, bringing the Kabuki Warriors in. But it's nice to see that they're finally doing something with Asuka. I think they killed Asuka's character when they made her lose to Charlotte Flair at WrestleMania, and we've not really seen much of Kairi Sane since she arrived on the main roster. So it's nice that they may now get featured on a regular basis. I say this in hope that the Women's Tag Team Championships will get featured on a regular basis, but there you go. New tag team champions, the Kabuki Warriors. So we now get a 6-man tag match. It is the OC, of course, the Magic Killers, and AJ Styles, the original club. It doesn't mean Orange County, let's just get that straight. And they're going against the Viking Raiders, who previously were heel, and now they're face again. And yeah, I guess that's something they just had to do, because the Viking Raiders were well over in NXT. They've been over in the independent scene, and they come to the main roster of WWE. They repackage them as Eric and Ivar and call them the Viking Raiders. But it's at least a little bit better than the Viking Experience. But there you go, and they bring out their mystery tag team partner, and that is Braun Strowman. So we have beards versus beards, and beards upon beards, and there's just beards everywhere in this match. But it would turn out to be, again, a pretty decent match. Again, continuing that upward trend here, but the match would be thrown out as a DQ as the OC started beating up Braun Strowman. About halfway through the match, it broke down. The whole of the OC got in, started beating down Braun Strowman, as the Viking Warriors were on the outside recovering, and yeah, it was thrown out as a DQ. The count of 5 happened. It made sense, although it was a DQ. Now, I'm not a big fan of DQ finishes unless they're done absolutely perfectly. You know, count out finishes where they both beat the stuffing out of each other and they just can't get up, fine, I don't mind those. But DQ finishes annoy me just that little bit, and it's the easy way out as far as I'm concerned in a wrestling match. But this would end in a DQ. After the match, Braun Strowman would get his revenge on AJ Styles, knocking him out completely with a right hand. Of course, he had a confrontation with Tyson Fury, of all places, on Smackdown the previous Friday, and it seems like they're building up something big for that feud, Braun Strowman versus Tyson Fury. I don't care. I'm all for celebrity involvement, but come on. Like, there's wrestlers, there's superstars on your books. They're not getting booked, they're not getting shown, they're not getting the TV time, they're just sat at home that you could be putting in these shows. And that automatically gets, you know, it knocks a few points off this one for me, as well as the DQ finish. Just no, I don't, you know, just no. Anyway, so yes, the Viking Raiders and Braun Strowman would then knock out AJ Styles. The club would then drag him out. He did a great job of selling it. Love AJ Styles, great job of selling it. Where am I? And the OC were Gallows and Anderson were trying to comfort him and drag him out and say, look, it's Sunday, we're here. And you know, he's doing a really good job of selling that punch as well. So at least AJ did a good job of that one, but it gets a bit of a down on this one for that. King Corbin next against Chad Gable. Although I think King Corbin has dubbed Chad Gable as Shorty Gable, because when the match had finished, and this leads to a little bit of a spoiler before I talk about the match anyway, the announcer announced the winner as Shorty Gable. It would be Chad Gable who would pick up the victory in this one, a roll-up victory. You know, like, another thing in wrestling, roll-ups. Oh, we don't know how to finish this one, pal. Oh, let's do a roll-up. Let's press this button here. Roll-up. Yeah, so Chad Gable wins. I'm glad to see him get a win, but I feel like they're not using Chad Gable as well as they could. The man is a machine. Yes, he doesn't have the height or, you know, the build of other wrestlers, but he is an absolute machine in that wrestling ring. Represented USA in wrestling at the London Olympics as well. Now, come on, that is pedigree. You had Kurt Angle, that was his whole gimmick. Obviously, he won gold medals at the Atlanta Olympics, but got another one. Chad Gable didn't win anything, I don't think, but represented, so he knows what he's doing in that ring, and he's really, really good. And I wish they'd just use him, just try and use him a little bit better. But yeah, he picked up the victory over Baron Corbin. A measure of revenge for losing the King of the Ring final to King Corbin. So yeah, yeah. I don't know what to say about that match, to be honest, because like I say, roll-up victories, not for me. Smackdown Women's Championship next. Difficult to follow the other Women's Championship match with this one. But we get the other half of the 4 horsewomen in this one, and it is Bayley as the champion versus Charlotte Flair. Bayley would pull out all of the heel tactics here, and again we've got a natural face and a natural heel flip-flopping in different roles. Bayley does not pull off a good heel because she's still playing it like being a babyface. Now she's trying all the heel tactics, and maybe this is the way they're trying to come across with the character. She's trying to be heel but can't quite do it at the same level as a proper heel. Maybe that's the way they're doing it. If they are, they're making her look daft once again. Finally managed to get behind Bayley once again as the heel, and for me I think Bayley should have kept the championship, and perhaps they should have pulled the trigger on Sasha picking up the Raw championship, and they would have had the 2 women power trip thing going off. Instead they did it the other way round, Charlotte picking up the victory quite convincingly actually with the figure 8 submission. Bayley had to tap out, and there's no way of getting around that. She was trying to cut corners all the way through, and Charlotte picks up the championship for the 10th time. 10 times she has won the women's championship. So I'm guessing that includes the Raw Women's Championships and the original Divas Championship that she had originally, as the championships merged and they bought a new championship out. So I'm guessing that includes that, and obviously the NXT Championship in this case wouldn't count. But Charlotte is your new women's champion, and again it was a decent little match, not as good as Becky Lynch versus Sasha, but it was a decent little match, and again bringing the spotlight onto the women, onto the ladies, and that is a good thing. So I hope they continue to do that with this one, as they had a lot of TV time here. 4 matches, 1 on the pre-show, 4 matches on the whole card. That is pretty decent for the women's revolution to continue upon. Incidentally, talking about the women, it would be a woman who would pick up the 24/7 championship. Forgot to mention this. She basically, R-Truth was running past the Street Profits. He would run into the Street Profits. Tamina would capitalise and pin R-Truth and pick up the championship. She marked out when she saw Tyler Breeze as well, which is quite funny, as she ran away. And it was the Street Profits at this point bigging up the draft. And at this point, you would probably think, if you didn't watch NXT, you'd probably wonder who the Street Profits were. Are they just backstage interviewers, or are they just there to move the action on? They've not actually debuted on Raw as a tag team, so you wouldn't really know who they are, apart from the fact that they've got Street Profits written on their shirts. So that is funny. But yeah, Tamina would eventually lose that championship just before the main event, actually, and by going up to the announcers' desks, as they were getting introduced, and basically Carmella would catch Tamina with a super kick, and selflessly would let R-Truth then pin Tamina, picking up the championship, I believe, for the 20th time. And it probably won't be that long before we say that about Charlotte as well. But yeah, I'd love the 24/7 championship. And just the storyline and the whole thing about just R-Truth just being there in the right place at the right time, and I really like it. I wasn't sure what it would be when it first started, but I really like the 24/7 Championship, and yeah, long may it prosper, because it is a break from the norm, which is always good. Now, I'd like to say the main event was a break from the norm, but we're talking about a Hell in a Cell. The match that the company has promoted for 20 years as this hellish structure that wrestlers get locked into. There's no escape, they can't go over the top, they can't climb out, no one can get in apart from Kane, obviously, but they built this match up to be something that, you know, it ends feuds, and shortens careers, and there's no disqualifications. It's a no disqualification match. So if you want to go and get a table from under the ring, you can use a table. It's basically a hardcore match in the confines of a big cage, and that's the way it's always been. Now, in recent years, they have toned it down a little bit, but we've had some really interesting spots in Hell in a Cell in the last couple of years. Thinking back to Randy Orton versus Jeff Hardy, where he put the screwdriver in his ear piercing and twisted it. I mean, that looked horrid. But being PG, it wasn't over the top, but it looked nasty. And this is what I want from my Hell in a Cells in the PG era. I want it to look nasty, like the drop kick on the chair that's been set up with the kendo sticks. Looks nasty, but not injure or do anything to the superstars therein. And that is my main thing about the PG era, is that they don't do stuff because they want to look after their wrestlers, and that is good. That's a good thing. That being said, however, if it's a hardcore match, if it's a Hell in a Cell, I don't want it to finish in a DQ. Now, that happened last year, and probably by now you know it happened again in this one. So it is Bray Wyatt versus Seth Rollins, who goes in as the Universal Champion, having conquered the Beast. And up to the finish, it was really, really good. It was a good match. There was no selling from the Fiend. So Seth Rollins gets a kendo stick, smacks the Fiend with it. He no sells. Doesn't work. He's an unstoppable monster. Even the lighting stayed red, a la Kane, you know, and it just made sense. Everything was setting up for the Fiend to pick up the championship, and I haven't been this annoyed with WWE for a long time. I usually defend them, but I cannot defend them on this one. Bray Wyatt gets the big hammer that he turned Rambling Rabbit into strawberry jam with. Apparently that's fine. He uses that as a weapon. They use chairs. Apparently that's fine. They use that as a weapon. They get tables. Apparently that is fine, because it's Hell in a Cell. Seth Rollins does eventually get the upper hand. He uses a chair. Apparently that is fine, because it's a steel chair and we're in Hell in a Cell. Put them all together. Put the ladder on top of Bray Wyatt, the Fiend. Put a table on top of it. Put a ladder on top of it, put a ladder on top of that, put a chair on top of that, and then a toolbox. Then get a sledgehammer, bearing in mind we've already had a big hammer, the biggest hammer that I've ever seen being used to put up a ring. Seth Rollins gets a sledgehammer. Apparently there's a couple of those under the ring. I don't know what they use those for to put up the ring. So I will continue now my ramblings. I am the human personification of Rambling Rabbit, because I need to get this out of my system. Yeah, so the Fiend picks up the biggest hammer I've ever seen in a wrestling match ever used, and that was under the ring. Seth Rollins gets a sledgehammer, and he gets warned by the referee not to use it, otherwise he'll get disqualified. Hello, referee, it's a no DQ Hell in a Cell match. We've seen a lot worse than this. We've seen a sledgehammer being used in the Hell in a Cell. We've seen that before. We've seen Mankind get chucked off the top of a Hell in a Cell. We've seen Shane McMahon jump off the top of a Hell in a Cell. The match finishes in a DQ, which later on was described as a no contest because Seth Rollins hit the Fiend with a sledgehammer while he was laying underneath a ladder with a toolbox on top of it. And apparently that is not allowed. Well, WWE, you might as well have just put an advert for AEW on your television program and just done it as the AEW network, because quite frankly a lot of people, not me I should say, I will watch AEW, but I'll still watch WWE, and that's not because I've got this channel, that is because I actually like WWE, and I'm hoping they can pull this one back. Not confident that they will, but I'm hoping they will. And it just annoyed people so much that this utter rubbish, this finish, utter rubbish, people wanted their money back. It drove people insane. I was sat here at 4 o'clock in the morning wondering why I stayed up for that finish, because I'm in the UK. That is not good. That is not good by a long shot. The saving grace here was the Jason Voorhees finish, where he thought he was down and out, and they, bearing in mind, he'd no-sold everything. Jason Voorhees finish, comes back, mandible claw, and makes Seth Rollins spit up ketchup. That did not save it. Apparently, on the grapevine, I've heard that it was a Vince McMahon decision to have this as the finish. Everything was set up for Bray Wyatt, the Fiend, to come out with the championship, and that's the way it should have been. Everyone's over Seth Rollins now. We need something different. People say that it was too close to Kofi Kingston losing his title. Just go with it. You've got 2 new networks, you've got 2 shows that you've reformed, you've redressed, and all that kind of stuff. Just go with the popular choices. Now, for once, just go with those, because you don't always have to go, I know what you want better than you want it, Vince, because it's going to drive a lot of people away. And yeah, it was just one of the most disappointing finishes to a pay-per-view that I've ever seen, and that's just driven my video into the 30-minute mark, because I think I've talked about this match more than the others combined, because it was so screwy, it was so messed up, it was unbelievable. I'm always one to look at the positives. I'm not just going to say, oh, that was crap, I'm not going to watch it anymore. I'm always one to think, okay, hopefully they've got a bigger picture, there must be a reason behind that decision in creative, where they're going to do something big later on. But apparently on Raw they didn't even mention it. Didn't even mention that Seth Rollins was spitting out blood at the end of the night and all that stuff. The show finishes in a chorus of boos, and that is that. And we got the same finish that we've had for the last couple of months, where the Fiend disappears with the screwy music and the lights flickering and things like that. But it had no meaning. You've destroyed everything that you've tried to build in the last couple of months with the Fiend, and it makes me sad. It really makes me sad, and I've had to deliver this video like a funeral. And yeah, so that is everything that happened at Hell in a Cell 2019. You've been watching Cheap Shot Entertainment. If you like the video, click the subscribe button, like the video, hit the notification bell to know when we upload new content to the channel. Don't forget the blog, the Facebook, Twitter, Instagram connection, and go and contact us on there. Upside on this pay-per-view is that they had a lot of women's action. They really brought them into the forefront of the pay-per-view, and that is good. The downside was obviously the massive I can't bring myself to say it, there's kids that watch this show, but the massive mess up that they did with the finish. And apparently since then as well, they've admitted that it was a massive oversight, and that is an understatement in this case. It really annoyed me. I went to bed at 4 o'clock in the morning, annoyed about something like wrestling. That's the life of a fan of WWE. I'm wearing my Bray Wyatt t-shirt as a homage to the man they have destroyed twice. And that is the end of the video. You have been the Cheap Shot Nation. I've been your host Luke. Once again, we'd like to say happy birthday to my main man Martin, 14 years old today on the 8th of October. And yeah, happy birthday to him. Hope you'll join us in saying that, Cheap Shot Nation. And we'll see you next time. There's plenty of videos coming, so click that notification bell. And goodbye.